Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. Yes, we are both alive. We haven't packed it in. We're back. Life got in the way. We may have had a little more of an extended break than first planned, but we're back. The proper stuff starting next week. Of course, we're back. Nathan, we've got literally 3 months of things to go through. There's been a Euros that's happened. God knows what else. We've had I was about to say some summer weather. We haven't, to be honest. That's just not showed its face this year. But other than that, obviously we've been in contact most days, just pleading for signings and things like that. But how has your summer been? Let's have a general catch up to start before we delve into the world of Middlesbrough.
It's been good, Chris. Thanks very much for asking. Yeah, still at university, 1 month to go now. Counting down the days for the final project being due in. But yeah, plodding on with that. Been away a couple of times. Been to Benidorm, which was messy as you can imagine, and been to the south of France as well, which was very
Very
warm,
posh.
very warm, very posh, and went to Monaco one day, and La Laugh was linked with them the day after. So I'm not going to go to any more places abroad this summer, at least until the window's closed. But yeah, a productive summer in terms of getting things in before the football's back, and now my schedule is free from now and till probably the next international break, really. So yeah, looking forward to the football, the nitty gritty, and yeah, really, really looking forward to it. I think I've messaged you every day, just pretty much you can sense my excitement. Lost for words already. Just get me into talking about Middlesbrough once again.
Yeah, Nathan, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited, but Nathan is I think it's because you've had all of those deadlines that you've whereas obviously I've been at work, I have been away, but you've had those. I've been there as well. I know how you feel where you've got God knows how many deadlines looming, and you just think if I can get to that date, then my life will start to get a little bit better after that. And you've kind of it's everything in now.
One more, which is start of September. So we've got four games or five if you count the Leeds game before then. But yeah, really looking forward to just getting it all polished off now and
Done
getting
and dusted.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I've been away, not quite to as posh of a place as you, mind in Monaco. Yeah, I imagine that was lovely, to be honest. I did see a couple of photos of you looking looking like $1 million, to be honest, Nathan, dressed for the occasion in Monaco. I was waiting to see you kind of like drive a speedboat or something, but I don't know where that sort of footage has gone.
Try my best. Try my best dressing to the nines in Monaco. But yeah, too hot for me over there. Too hot for me.
Yeah, well, I went to Tenerife. It should be kind of unbearable temperature, but it wasn't at all really. And to be honest, it was a lads' holiday, so the weather wasn't really first on the agenda. As Benidorm was for you, it was quite a heavy one. A week on the beers, wonderful time. Do miss it every day. But yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago, to be honest. As does the end of the last football season. I remember in the last episode that we recorded saying, okay, if you give it a week, basically what we're going to do is have a little break. Then we'll probably do a buy, keep, or sell video, then have another break, and then just kind of see how the summer goes. To be honest, relatively quickly, it was more or less either confirmed by the club or confirmed by the player that obviously before going into the back end of last season, we kind of knew which ones were going to stay and which ones were going to keep. But the official confirmation come through relatively quickly, didn't it? So, I mean, I've just said to you, some of these players, I just can't even remember them pulling on a Middlesbrough shirt now. Luke Thomas, who's he? He went back to Leicester. Lewis O'Brien, I think we kind of towards the back end of last season knew when Law McKay was coming in and getting minutes that was his Middlesbrough career done, even though he said he would have loved to have come back. He's gone back out to America. Sam Greenwood is back in the Championship, but not with Middlesbrough. He's gone on loan to Preston. They all went. Then, of course, the retained and released list come out. Paddy McNair left, which we kind of expected. He's back in the championship, kind of. And then Jamie Jones left as well, who is in League Two now, who started pre-season and then just actually decided that he didn't want to basically boot balls into Senny Ding's hands all season. So fair play to him and best of luck. I don't really want to get sort of drawn into the Lewis O'Brien, Luke Thomas, Sam Greenwood stuff because we kind of covered that all at the back of last season. But really, any surprise that none of them have returned?
No, not really. Not in the end. I think me and you did have a discussion on one of the pods at the back end of last season about those players and if we'd keep them or if we would just sort of let them go. And I think we sort of settled on that Greenwood wouldn't have been a bad option necessarily, if he was just coming in and out. But yeah, I don't think that we were either too bothered that those players didn't end up at Middlesbrough permanently or on loan once again. So yeah, best of luck to those players apart from when they play us, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touching on Paddy McNair as well, I think we all kind of knew his time was coming to an end. There was no real sort of report or anything like that, that there was even going to be an offer on the table for him. He has joined San Diego, I believe, in America, but then being loaned, obviously, because of the MLS schedule, straight to West Brom. Obviously, we're going to come up against him this season, most likely. But yeah, I mean, Paddy McNair, fantastic servant, played in every position. Kind of, I almost feel like Paddy McNair, in the end, like in a 6 months' time or a year, you'll look back at him and you think, I mean, you could probably say that already. Overall, given the price tag, given the manager that brought him in, I think you could say it was a success. It was definitely a success, but very up and down. Never really kind of found an actual position where he was sort of happy with. I think for me, kind of best memories of Paddy McNair, it'll be in that back three under Chris Wilder. Don't get me wrong, he had some really good performances under Michael Carrick. And he had some, do you know what? Even playing in midfield under Woodgate, he was kind of one of the very, very, very small shining lights of that era. But yeah, Paddy McNair obviously departs, joins West Brom, and let's be honest, West Brom are getting a good Championship player on loan for a period of time. But yeah, again, expected to be honest.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I didn't expect is that he'd end up at West Brom and not Sheffield United because he just humdings of Sheffield United either with Wilder or just them in general with the whole back three that they play and just don't move from that back three. Um,
Them
but
or Stoke. I
them
always
also,
felt he always used to get linked with Stoke, didn't he? It was always going to be one of them, and lo and behold, it's actually not.
yeah. But yeah, a funny old move for him going to the MLS. San Diego don't actually exist yet. They're starting from next season, which the MLS season starts in February. So he's on loan at West Brom till December, I think it is, not even till January. So strange one, but there you go. We'll play against him once this season, which is going to be a little bit funny, but hopefully Manu runs him in behind and scores 12.
Yeah, I mean, we've got that to look forward to, haven't we? On exits, really, that was kind of like just like boring admin that we had to get out of the way. Now's the time to get into the exciting stuff, into the positive news, and look ahead. Let's not look back, right? That's that out the way, okay? So pre-season is done at the time of recording, out the way. Let's get on to signings and new contracts. Okay. In fact, there was one exit which we probably should cover. Sammy Silvera joined Portsmouth on loan. Again, realistically, he needed the loan move. I think it's fair to say.
He definitely did. Yeah. He needs regular game time at this level. Impressed last pre-season against lower division sides, like Bradford in the cup games and things like that, and also in the pre-season game. But yeah, in those opening few games of last season, missing pretty much unforgivable chances against Coventry and Huddersfield in a matter of weeks, and then just blowing hot and cold throughout his full time at the football club. Scored a few goals, which was quite strange looking back and seeing that he did. I think he scored 5 or 6 goals in the championship, which is a pretty good return for someone in the first season. But yeah, he definitely needed that loan move. I think Silvera was probably brought in the summer with sort of the idea that he'd be what we've done this year, bringing in another winger to be a different kind of player, a different option off that left hand side. Which, look, it hasn't worked out so far, but interestingly enough, they don't have a buy option for him. So if he turns out to be a world beater in the championship for Portsmouth, then he'll probably be getting pulled back into Michael Carrick's team in the distant future. But yeah, good luck to him on his loan. He won't be playing against us, which is good because we know what it's like
Is
when.
it?
Well, maybe not, but we
No,
know.
I know what you mean. Middlesbrough's look, he would turn into some sort of reincarnation of Pele against
he
us. It's only
he
right.
he definitely score and we get beat 1-0.
Yeah,
It's just nailed on.
yeah, it really is. Okay, officially now is the time to look forward. I missed that little sort of snippet. New contracts. So, final podcast of last season, we did discuss it, but Johnny Howsing tied down. Isaiah Jones, new contract. The big talking points going into the summer and kind of dominated the early section of the summer in terms of Middlesbrough talk prior to the Euros, and everyone kind of forgot that club football existed for a couple of weeks. Michael Carrick and Riley McGree. And I think most kind of were in the boat of, okay, Carrick's going to sign a new deal, but it's starting to get a little bit tetchy. There hasn't been too much noise around it. And then also Riley McGree, whereas everyone was in the boat of, I can't really see him staying. Kind of, all those nonsense rumours about him falling out with Carrick and whatnot last season, but let's not get into that. But yeah, that was the one where everyone was a little bit more thinking, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if Middlesbrough will try and cash in because, it was going to be our last chance to get a reasonable fee for Riley McGree, who, whether you like him or not, there's a whole host of clubs throughout Europe that I'm sure would have absolutely paid a quite healthy fee for him, regardless kind of his contract situation. Both of which are signed. Both are delightful news for me. I mean, on Carrick, we spoke about him. Funnily enough, I listened to the last podcast of the back end of last season. And we just, of course, talked about how well we'd ended the season, but also how much credit Michael Carrick had deserved, really, for kind of the up and down nature of last season and really steadying the ship at times and managing to find answers when really we could only field 11 players quite literally at times. And he found those answers. And then, okay, at the end of the season, he had a little bit more of a kind of choice between who he could select, options off the bench. It started to look a little bit more healthy. And that kind of coincided with us being, well, excellent for the closing stages of the season. So that was that done. As we've said, as I said in the last episode, for me, even with a non-Middlesbrough biased hat on, he's one of the best managers in the Championship, one of the brightest English management prospects in the country. I'm just delighted that he's committed his future. And then with Riley McGree, I mean, everyone, if you've listened to this podcast for long enough, you'll know my thoughts on Riley McGree. I think he's a wonderful footballer. I love his tash. Even when he had the mullet and tash combo, it was a thing of beauty. And he's just, for me, in that role off the left, like when the sort of defensive midfielder role was nicknamed the Makaleli role,
Yeah.
that position in our formation is the McGree role because no one can do it like him. It's his role. And yeah, he's staying for good. So fantastic news on both fronts.
100%. Carrick is the most important signing of the summer. I think that's just a given, really. Taking it back a little bit to last season, and I know it's a slight negative note, but going back to March and that afternoon in Stoke, where we were absolutely dismal, and I think we hadn't won in six. I think after that game, we looked absolutely pathetic. Didn't get out of our own half for pretty much the entirety of the game, and got pinned in by a team that were just abject crap. And yeah, we, me especially on this podcast, reviewing that game, asked the question of him that I think we had a couple of games, 3 or 4 games till the next international break. And I asked the question that if he didn't pick up a select amount of points during that time, would it really be a case of jangling nerves at the football club and we might have to make a change because we were getting dragged in? And yes, we changed system for the next game against Norwich. Yes, there was good fortune in that game, but from then on, we were just a ridiculous force. We were unbeaten in 12 out of the last 13 games of the season, and yeah, the pretty much the form team in the division for those last 13 games, which built the optimism throughout the summer to think, right, we've ended the season on a real high. We've got momentum behind us. If we don't lose our best players and we can strengthen in specific areas of the pitch, we will be one of the teams to beat in the division in 2024-25. And Carrick signing that new deal, yes, it was expected. Yes, all the noise was that he was going to sign a new contract. But at the time when he did sign that new contract, there was question marks about Ipswich, about McKenna leaving. So there was that possible link. Leicester, Maresca was just leaving there. There was all sorts of speculation about different jobs, and Carrick's name was getting bandied about a couple, not by reputable sources, albeit, but just by people throwing his hat into the ring.
I think I
And
even saw a Burnley fan mention his name.
yes, yeah, I did as well. And I think I actually replied to him and said, "You're having a laugh, aren't you? Like you must be having a laugh." But yeah, to sign that deal, and you look, everyone saw the video when it was announced of the fans giving their opinions on him. And I echo every fan in that video that he is the man to take us forward. He's shown adaptability, and last year in his first full season as a manager, I think he'll have learned a hell of a lot about not only this team, but also about what to do in certain situations. Because look, it was a ridiculously tough situation last year at times, playing, I don't even know, literally a game every 3 days in December, having a squad of probably 14 to pick from, and just having to go at it on all fronts, having Leeds and Ipswich back to back, West Brom who were in the playoffs, all in that certain period of time, juggling the cup run, playing Chelsea in semi-finals and Aston Villa a couple of days before in the FA Cup, just having to juggle ridiculous amounts of trouble and just fighting on, fighting through it. And look, we finished really well at the end of last season, finished eighth, and seeing the way that certain uh, championship experts have spoken about us and saying that last season was probably a little bit disappointing based on the season prior in which we had all of our loan players. I actually think looking back on last season, it was probably a bit of a success in the end, that he's bedded in so many new players, battled through injury crisis after injury crisis. And in the end, we come out of the season looking like a really good team once again. And yeah, having his future nailed down is and was mightily important to get done. And yeah, to nail down McGree as well, who's an integral part of the team on that left hand side in that McGree role that you've just spoken about there, Chris. It is mightily important. As you say, there's no better player to play in that position than him. And yeah, we only saw in flashes last season, unfortunately, what he could do because he was out for varying lengths of time throughout the season. But yeah, when he was in the team before that injury that that kept him out for a long period of time before Christmas, he was part of the turnaround, scored that goal against Southampton, played quite well in the game against Cardiff, and then yes, obviously we had to deal with it without him for pretty much about 5 months because as he was coming back, the Asia Cup happened, and yeah, and then he came back. We started doing all right again, and he come out injured again for the final 12 games of the season or so. So yeah, but he's going to be back now in that role, and yeah, he just needs a left back alongside him, whether it's Engel or anyone else, to be the one that's bombing on. Because we didn't see all too much of that last season, but yeah, we know that that's the way to go now. We need that left back.
For anyone watching on YouTube, Nathan has just sort of smiled and grinned almost to the extent of a giggle, like a year seven schoolgirl who is referring to our crush in a conversation with our parents at the thought of the word left back. We'll get into that said. Well, to be honest, Nathan, I think it would be fair to call him a crush. I mean, we all love him, don't we? So we'll get onto that a little bit later. So you'll just have to contain your excitement just for a few minutes at least before we get onto that topic. I hate to do this again because I've already done it once. Don't want to be looking back on exits, but you mentioned Burnley. Immediately, it took my mind to Vincent Company and how he got the Bayern Munich job. And then I remembered actually they took Aaron Danks. Where did that come from? I think that in the whole sort of football manager-esque style inquiry and the whole story breaking, and we were like, hang on a second, what? But in fairness, Aaron Danks, he's obviously got a very good reputation amongst coaches throughout Europe. I believe he has worked with Vincent Company before, I think. And yeah, listen, we kind of course, don't get to see the day-to-day work of Aaron Danks and how good he is. But you know, for a manager like Michael Carrick coming into his first managerial job, those types of coaches around him, the ones that have experienced it at varying levels, I have no doubt are just as important or were just as important in those early months, and also in credit to him, kind of helping alongside all of the issues that we faced last season. But he has gone and he's brought his brother in. And I mean, there's obviously the conversation of, listen, we're not saying it is, but there's the obvious conversation is, our jobs for the boys. He's brought his brother in. You know, Graham Carrick has been a coach for a long, 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 long time. So I don't think, I mean, honestly, the type of bloke that Michael Carrick is, does anyone really believe he'd just go, oh, well, I'll just bring my brother in. That's fine. I've just lost one of my key coaches. I'll just bring my brother in, even if I don't think he's up to the standard. Nice little payday for him. Probably a bump up on his wages from working in academy football. Yeah, we'll just slot him in, and no one will know, and no one will sort of notice that it happens to be my brother as well. Of course, it's not. He obviously sees enough in his brother in terms of his coaching capacity and ability that he is going to benefit the coaching staff and be a welcome addition on the coaching staff. And also, you know, what I think is quite an interesting dynamic is, and I'm not for 1 minute saying that the other coaches can't challenge Carrick and give him differing viewpoints, But if there's anyone in the world that is willing to go, actually, I don't agree with that, it's your brother.
Yeah, it is. He definitely 100% is going to have a lot of trust in him. And yeah, that is obviously vitally important when you are a manager and you are speaking to your assistant coaches about certain players, certain systems, certain tactics against teams, whether they agree with you or not on certain things and tweaks to make to your system to beat other team systems. Yeah, it's vitally important. And yeah, best of luck to Aaron Danks as well. Going to Bayern Munich. I mean, you'd struggle to turn it down, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to Aaron Danks, I don't think anyone's held it against him, have they?
Yeah, yeah. It was always going to be one of them where it was a matter of sort of when rather than if, when that link first come up. And yeah, all credit to him. His mate's got a job over there who evidently trusts him as well to be able to take him out of one job and bring him into another. And yeah, best of luck to him. We'll see how they do in the Champions League.
It should be interesting. It definitely should be. Now, right, I promise, unless there's something that pops into my head, and I sincerely hope there's not. I mean, obviously we've had 3 months to plan, and quite clearly it's gone extremely well, Nathan, because we've had to go backwards twice. I'm hoping this is the last moment. But we can now officially move on to incomings. The stuff that we all get excited about, the stuff that we've all been frantically refreshing X or Twitter all summer for, every forum, every social media platform, every transfer centre. We've tried to have it covered. And yeah, it's let's be honest, it's the exciting part of the summer. As soon as the Euros were over, and even then there was stuff bubbling away in the background, but you kind of always felt things would start to heat up a little bit once that was done and dusted with. I think in terms of Boro's recruitment strategy over the last few years, and just in general, kind of how things have changed within the club since the arrival of Kieran Scott, you don't really tend to hear about signings all too sort of long before it actually happens. It's usually a week or two before you get interest, then there's a bid, and then it kind of happens, or it's just basically sprung on you and no one even manages to pick it up. There was sort of a little bit of chatter on various sort of message boards and things like that, oh, hang on, I've heard we might be signing so and so. The big man, DB, Della, Delano Bergzorg from, I mean, was on loan at Huddersfield, but we've actually bought him from Mainz in Germany. I must say, when I first heard the name, I thought, what? But having read, and if you haven't read it, I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening have had the chance to watch him in action now. Um, but as soon as Nathan put that tweet out about, go on then, Huddersfield fans, what's Delano Bergsorg all about? There was sort of a part of me which thought, I think this could actually work. And I must admit, I'm quite excited about the prospect of him.
It's either going to be a masterstroke or we've just signed Rudy Gestead with tattoos.
Possibly.
It is literally one or the other. To see him linked and see his sort of skill set, see clips of him, big, tall winger, direct, quick, tricky. The only thing that we sort of, or I would say, is a negative on him is he looks a little bit greedy, which at times can be a good thing. It can be a sign of really, really good confidence and self-belief. But in the way that we play, which is very sort of intricate and moving the ball quickly, Bergzorg will have to adapt to that. But
I
from what
think I
from what
think
we've seen
just
so far,
sorry to
promising.
interrupt. Yeah, just on that point, like you've kind of alluded to, it really is the almost good thing about that area being, I don't want to say a weakness, but something that is quite apparent in any kind of footage. I mean, even watching him a little bit in pre-season, which is apparent. That side of his game is something that can be coached. I think what is exciting is I don't for 1 minute believe that Kieran Scott and all of the recruitment staff and Michael Carrick himself won't have done background checks to kind of find out what type of character Delano Bergzorg is. And also they've unearthed gems. We know that it's not like the Middlesbrough of old. We now know, okay, yeah, there wasn't kind of any question marks about his attitude or anything like that. But when we signed Morgan Rogers, everyone kind of thought, hang on a second, he's had a failed loan move at Blackpool. He's been at Bournemouth and not really kicked a ball. What are we kind of seeing in this one? And look, they aren't the same player. They certainly aren't. But there is kind of qualities where you can see Bergzorg has that little bit of an X factor. He has that bit of that almost. I think, yeah, X factor would be the right word, to be honest. He has the ability to carry a ball. That is something which, from the clips, especially the Huddersfield clips that I've watched of him, it does look as though that's one of his main strengths. And I mean, the stature of him, the ball carrying ability isn't just because of the fact he's strong and people can't get the ball off him. It's intricate, close control, skill, nice turns, good technical footwork. And it's something which is really exciting and gives us a completely different option as well. And I think, like you said, kind of similarly last season when we brought in Silvera, that was looked at as like a bit of a plan B, something a bit different. And Silvera ultimately, I don't want to be too cutting, but wasn't good enough to be that plan B, and certainly not a plan A. I think Bergzor comes with a little bit more pedigree, especially because he's played in the league already. And yes, although, like you say, it was in a Huddersfield team that was terrible for the majority of the season, he knows what to expect. He's not coming in from a foreign league with kind of no expectation of the kind of defenders he's going to be playing against this season. And I think initially, to be honest, I actually looked at him and thought, could he be the kind of second to the heir of the throne of a Chuba Akpom style position, a withdrawn striker? And listen, we might even see that from him this season. It's certainly interesting that he's played a lot of football off the left so far in pre-season. But I think it's just that kind of X factor, the unknown, the unexpected, and almost a little bit of a maverick feel about him where you think that could really come in handy. He might not start every game, and I don't think that's probably going to be the case, but he's certainly a much, much better option than anything we had in our ranks last season to come on and change a game or try and unlock a defence or just be something different in attack.
Yeah, and as mentioned there, I sort of said that he played out of position a lot of times for Huddersfield by playing as a centre forward. But with that, it gives us versatility as well, knowing our injury problems that have riddled this squad for probably over a season now. Towards the back end of Carrick's first season that he was in, we had a lot of injuries as well. Bergzorg being able to play off the left and as that centre forward as well is really interesting and really important for us. That yeah, we are in need of another centre forward, which we will get onto a little bit later. But Bergzorg being able to play there on one side, Force being able to do a job at centre forward or in that sort of position will be very helpful if he wants to change it up in certain games or if we just have a ridiculous injury crisis, which, yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't.
Yeah,
This,
you can't rule it out at this point, can you?
no, no, you really can't. But yeah, it gives us another option, certainly, with Bergsorg. And yeah, as you mentioned, he is a bit of a maverick. He's a wild card. You probably don't know what he's going to do. And I don't think he probably knows what he's going to do either. So, yeah, it gives us something very sort of interesting off one side, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second summer edition. And I think kind of obviously with second edition and kind of the first edition of the summer, we haven't really discussed Luke Ayling, but we'll just touch on him now. It sort of fits into the like both categories of new contract slash new signing. I think, to be honest, there was always a confidence, and I don't know about yourself, but I always just felt that he settled in so well. He had a great end to last season, and I just, even after the links with Birmingham and Sheffield United, I never really felt that there was going to be any danger of him resigning. And I mean, lo and behold, he has resigned again. We kind of have had this discussion at the back end of last season, so I don't want to. Everyone knows what Luke Ayling did at the last end of last season, and everyone knew that we wanted him to resign. It was just another bonus, another tick in a box where he's back, he's our player, and he's a good championship right back, and he is going to be our starting championship right back. And he's got a great chant and a great man bun as well.
He does. He does. That's caught me off guard, the man bun. But yeah, really pleasing for Luke Ayling to come in. Again, in January, maybe this was just my mood at the time around the football club as a whole, which is quite funny considering the Luke Ayling rumour came about after us beating Chelsea. Um, but seeing his name mentioned, I just thought, yeah, really wasn't sure about this one. Thought he'd probably just come in similar to Luke Thomas as a stopgap, really, for injuries at right back. But him coming in and his back end to last season was just phenomenal, really. Just every other week it was another assist to his name. And I mean, look, I'm going to be honest, I can't see that necessarily continuing to the same level that it was at the back end of last season throughout the whole of this season. But a solid option at right back that can play the same role as Tommy Smith, can tuck in there and do his defensive work as well. Big, tall guy, good in the air as well, getting his man bun on it. But yeah, a really good addition to the squad, a real a real leader, a player that's been there and done it at this level. And something that I really enjoy is he's a massive shithouse as well. And we need more characters like that in this squad. Um, I think every team that is successful in the championship has a horrible character like Luke Ayling, which we've got him now. So perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when you say horrible, I think he's actually one of the most lovable blokes that is sort of ever played for us in recent times. But in terms of horrible, I wouldn't want to play against him. I feel
Exactly.
like he is the staple of the dark arts and winding up home fans. Obviously not Middlesbrough home fans, but I guess home fans in the context of us playing away.
I absolutely hated him when he was at Leeds. Absolutely hated him. My dad still brings it up now. When I cheer him when he's giving a little bit of shithousery out. He's like, you used to hate when he used to do that against us when he played for Leeds. I said, yeah, but he's playing for us now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. You've got every excuse now. Okay, so another, I mean, this was meant to be in chronological order. It's kind of ended up being a little bit all over the place, but who cares? It's excitement. The structure's gone out the window because we're excited. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Harley Hunt arrived from Swindon. Look, we don't obviously know an awful lot about him. I think surely because of his age, but a young, exciting signing. I think it's a signing made with the idea of him initially joining the under 23s and kind of building his career up that way at Middlesbrough, but securing him when he's young enough so that, we're going to have the benefit of him growing into his body, growing into a player and growing into someone that can be involved with the first team. I think obviously Middlesbrough fans did get a little bit of a glimpse of him at Harrogate the other night. But I mean, I think the thing for me is for the age he's at, you've got to be some player or some kind of experienced head or just a real prospect to go and play in League Two at the age of 16. I mean, that is mightily, mightily impressive, especially at centre half, which is probably, if not the most physical position to play on a football pitch, especially against some of the brute forces in that league as well. I dread to think of some of the names at the bottom end of that league. It's quite terrifying, actually. I'm sure there's a few ex-Middlesbrough strikers that scored about 3 goals and never done anything else. But yeah, obviously a good addition in that sense, but not kind of someone that you're looking at that's really kind of going to be any real name on a first team sheet for a little while, at least you would expect.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly one for the future. And I suppose another benefit, as you were mentioning there, Chris, is that getting him in so young allows him to bed into the under 23s, and the way that we play is similar to the 23s. And that's continued throughout all the age groups. So yeah, getting him used to that as well will be mightily important. And yeah, the Boro fans that went and watched at Harrogate on Wednesday evening last week were very impressed by him. Said very calm and composed on the ball. And yeah, it looks like we've signed the next Rav Vandenberg. So perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if he's anywhere half as good as him, I think we'll have had an absolute bargain there. And then kind of, I mean, actually, apart from Luke Ayling, was he first or was he second? Dear me, I'm kind of going back on myself now. I think
It
the
was
player
it.
that I'm about to talk about was after Bergsorg.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
It yeah, Erling Bergzorg, and then our American Eagle,
the American Dream.
the
Yeah,
second one in the squad.
yeah. Well, I don't even think he's in our squad anymore. Bless him. He's been shipped off to the. I think they're just telling him to train with the under 14s or something at this stage. No disrespect to Matthew Hoppy, by the way. Yeah, the real American Eagle has arrived, and it is in the form of a combative little bit of a. Do you remember on FIFA a few years ago? And this is a niche one when Martin Tyler used to have a really iconic catchphrase about Carlos Tevez.
Yes, the yeah bull.
Carlos Tevez with his bulldog-like approach. Aidan Morris with his bulldog-like approach. He's arrived from Columbus Crew, and I mean we'll get into kind of all the context of the whole situation and the genuine sadness at some of the Columbus Crew fans on him moving on. He is essentially one of their own, one of their best players, probably their best player, and they were absolutely devastated to see him go. But from what I've seen of him so far, short, stocky, and dare I say it, he's got an absolute thunder bastard on him as well.
Yeah, it looks really promising, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll take you back to being sat here in the same position that I'm in now, doing uni work. Check my phone, see the link come up, think never heard of this kid before. Post it straight on YouTube, see what he's about. Like any player that gets linked from abroad that I've never heard of, and immediately the Twitter tacticals have seen the link and refer to him as probably like the second coming of Makaleli, really. So yeah, uh, real promising to get him to not send him off to the Olympics with the US team. Really important. Gets him bedded in, gets a full preseason under his belt, gets him used to the area, used to the way that we play, used to his teammates, etc., etc. And also, probably one of the strangest moments of the summer was watching him interviewed on NBC, I think it was, while getting his hair cut.
Yeah, what was all that about?
Lost for words, really.
And
Like,
do you know what as well? By all means, be creative with your media outlets. And America are probably a little bit ahead of UK broadcasting and media in terms of that. But whoever thought it was a good idea to have him getting his hair cut, if he was just getting a little bit of a snip on top, absolutely fine. But the fact that there was literally a razor going off whilst he's trying to answer questions, honestly, whoever's thought that and sanctioned that off, you need a rethink of your media sort of coverage, because you could barely hear a word what he was saying because he was getting his hair done. But
Yeah,
listen, nice end product, good fade. By all means, he's probably got a new barber, and it was a nice bit of exposure for his barber in the US. But come on, I wanted to hear what he was saying, not listen to the clippers. I would have just walked into my barbers and sat in there and just try to make out everyone else's conversations and probably picked up just as much, because it was really quite pointless, to be honest. But yeah, like you say, in all seriousness, a lot of people that have watched more of the MLS than us, and that's one thing that I will say. Listen, on this podcast, especially, we will always be honest. We are the exact type of fans who, as soon as we get linked with someone that we don't know, go straight to YouTube and watch videos. And we've been scarred many times. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say, yeah, I've watched thousands of minutes of him. I think he's going to be this, that, and the other. From the signs that I've seen, and obviously you can base preseason to a certain extent from highlights as well, and from people who genuinely, like, I would actually kind of respect their opinion, or people that work for the Athletic, people that work for really good media sources, they do speak, or were speaking, about Aidan Morris in a slightly different light to most MLS players. Like, this was a genuine kind of, most people were saying there's almost like a little bit of his character where you can almost, it almost feels like a natural fit going into the championship. And I mean, the kind of MLS is whatever your thoughts on the standard of that league. I think calling someone a natural fit is quite a big call when you're coming from a league like that to the championship. But in fairness, from what I've seen, and I've seen him a couple of times in pre-season now, just from the type of player he is, he's bitty, he's horrible, he wants to press, he wants to be aggressive. And they're all attributes, to be fair. And look, the intensity that he might kind of come into the team, and for a few weeks he might look a little bit out of place, and that's okay. But certainly in terms of his standout attributes, you do think, if you were gonna hand pick, if you were kind of creating your own pro on FIFA and you were going straight into the championship, what are some of the key attributes that you'd pick out about someone joining a league for the first time? And I think, from what I've seen and the way he's been described, they are all attributes which are going to be, he's going to be at home in the championship.
yeah. I think you're probably right. Um, Obviously you've seen him in action for us at some of the preseason games, but yeah, seeing his sort of stature, he does appear a little bit short, but he's very sort of wide built, isn't he? I think you said stocky earlier. Yeah, broad shoulders, can get about the pitch in short, sharp bursts. I've heard he sort of covers that midfield area really well. And yeah, as you mentioned, one of the main things that I picked out as well was he has a strike on him. When he gets the ball from outside the box, he doesn't mind having a go, which will be nice as well. Obviously, we've seen Hackney score one in pre-season against Doncaster, it was, but haven't really got too many memories over the last couple of years from our central players, our central midfielders, more often than not, just knock it out wide or try and recycle it rather than just having a pop at goal. And hopefully Morris is a player that will give us a little bit more of that as well. So yeah, what I do think will happen though is I do think that the idea would have been to bed him in a little bit with Howson playing first. But obviously we'll get onto things in a couple of minutes. But yeah, obviously Howson took a little bit of a blow yesterday, so we may see a little bit more of Aidan Morris sooner sooner than we think, really, with the first game looming large.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think just finally on Aidan Morris, something which I really picked up on, even from the short kind of minutes which I actually seen of him in the flesh, is for someone coming over from America to a big English club, he wants the ball. And I think, and I know that sounds like such a simple thing, but if you, I think if you understand football and you understand kind of the main attributes that you want from a centre midfielder, you want them to want the ball. Some centre midfielders are guilty of it, where they're happy to hide behind a man and not pick up the ball or not go and get it off a keeper. Everything that I've seen of him and all of the reports of Middlesbrough fans and journalists who've watched him this pre-season already is he's going to be the one that's, if it's slow, if he's not happy with the intensity, he's going to go and say, right, I'll have it off the centre half, turn and let's get going. I'm not happy to just kind of stand behind my man, wait for someone else to take the responsibility. He's going to be the one that'll go and say, yeah, I'll have it, and get us on the front foot. And I think that for me is something that Hayden Hackney's really good at as well. But obviously we missed it largely last season. And I mean, the prospect of having both him and Hackney, him and Howson, it's definitely something which I feel a lot happier with, and I'm excited to see it because everyone loves a centre midfielder that just constantly wants the ball. That's the type of centre midfielder that I want, at least anyway. Right, so we've spoken about it a little bit. Again, like we spoke about in terms of the way we are with signings that we don't know of, we're honest on this podcast. I'm sure there's plenty of good content from other creators and other people throughout preseason where you can get a little bit more insight. And there's highlights of all of the games on Middlesbrough's app and website as well. But preseason, Nathan, I'm just going to run through the results quickly in the games. We did this last season. I don't think there's really anything in terms of to really go at, or any standout results where you think, oh my goodness, like that's a major talking point. But anyway, I'll quickly go through the results. So preseason started off with the squad flew out to Portugal and we were beaten 2-0 off Vitoria. Second preseason game, 3-0 win against Bolton. The biggest talking point for me about that game was, why did we play Bolton at Bishop Auckland's ground? That just seems really, really strange. Third preseason game, the one that I was in attendance for, a 1-0 win over Gateshead. Then probably the best in terms of goals and action during preseason, a 5-3 win over Doncaster. Then a 0-0 draw against Harrogate, which, in fairness, I guess the two talking points for those two games was, surprisingly, usually the last preseason game is the game where the manager goes with his starting team. Carrick actually went with pretty much his best team against Doncaster, and the one that you're probably expecting to start against Swansea. It was a rotated side against Harrogate. And then obviously yesterday, to cap off pre-season, 1-0 win. I feel like I'm going to butcher this name, so can you say it for me, please?
Heronveen.
Heronveen, yeah. I was actually going to go with that, and then I seen the double E and panicked a little bit.
I
But
always said it the other way, yeah.
But yeah, capped off pre-season at home, as we always do, with a 1-0 win over Robin van Persie's Dutch side. And yeah, I mean, in terms of that game, score the goal, from a penalty, the big man, Della, in off the bench. Manu did miss a penalty, which is disappointing, but it's a pre-season game, so I don't really care. I'll be back on them, banging 4 in next week. And yeah, largely positive. There's no real sort of absolute nightmare results in there, nothing standing out too much. Obviously, we did have the kind of situation with Howson yesterday, but from the way it was described, and Rav as well, probably more so precaution than anything. But I guess we'll wait and see, because with Boro and injuries, you can never be too certain. I think, to be honest, in terms of the biggest talking point from pre-season, and it kind of ties in with what we're going to go on with a little bit, was firstly for me, the fact that when you see the Inside Rockcliffe videos, no Tommy Smith and no Marcus Force. The lack of those two, as we now know, they aren't going to make the start of the season. And by the sounds of things, although we don't have a definitive timescale, they aren't really actually going to kind of be a couple of games into the season. I'm not saying it's long term by any stretch, but they aren't really. I think at the end of the season, we expected both of which to be at least kind of playing a part in pre-season at the back end of last season, and neither of them have done. Obviously, the kind of main injury problem. Alex Bangura is out long term. I believe that was an injury which actually happened in Portugal. So, I mean, how's your look for that one? I feel terribly sorry for Alex Bangura because I think most people probably expected him with a full preseason under his belt to be the starting left back going into this season, especially coming off the back of his injury problems last year. And kind of to tie in with that, another kind of narrative which has come out of preseason, which is been a real sort of impressive point, is the emergence of George McCormick. And from everything that I've seen, if it hasn't been Aidan Morris impressing, he has been the next name where everyone's gone, I tell you what, he looked good. He's listen again, back end of last season. If you'd asked me that name, I wouldn't have known who he is or what academy team he represents or how old he even is. But that's the beauty of pre-season. These academy players are given a chance, and I mean, he's essentially now worked his way into the first team setup, and not just because there's been an injury at Alex Bangura, but because of the fact that whenever he's had an opportunity, grasped it with both hands. And you've seen kind of Sonny Finch get highlighted in a couple of pre-season fixtures as well. He's got a few goals throughout, but obviously we knew of Sonny Finch, and he's another one that had injury problems last season. But in terms of coming from the unknown and coming into a position where actually we are now light on numbers, I'm sure he's looked at pre-season and at the start of it and thought, if I can get to kind of anywhere near being within contention of even making the bench at the start of the championship season, I'll be delighted. And I think he is going to be well within question to be in and amongst it because he's grasped his opportunity.
Yeah, sometimes doors just open for you at the right time, don't they? And it looks like that has sort of happened for McCormick. But yeah, at left back, it's a killer for Bangura, really. You're looking at the left back options with him and Engel, those two, and you're thinking Engel probably just put in 7 out of 10s last season, and never really more than that. A few performances that were less than that and a lot less than that, notably Sheffield Wednesday. But Bangura, when we've seen him, he's looked relatively impressive. Obviously, his speed gives him that edge over Engel in terms of getting back and forward. So yeah, losing him is an absolute killer. And look, we strangely enough, the conversation was which one was it always going to be between these players? Was it going to be Engel that starts the season? Was it going to be Bangura? And then, yeah, it just sort of happened that we were linked to another left back, but yeah, only him and no other left back. But then nothing escalated really on that front. And now the Bangura injury happened, it seems that there's a desperate need for a left back. And since Bangura's injury, which, look, Portugal happened a month ago now, we've all known since then that Bangura was probably going to be out long term. He hadn't been seen in any of the Rockcliffe videos. He hadn't been seen in any of the preseason friendly squads. So I think that left back will be a target despite McCormick's good form in preseason.
In terms of kind of moving on now to, again, the more exciting part, if you want to call it that, in terms of targets and transfer business as a whole, I think like McCormick, certain doors open for certain people. I think two of the kind of conversations off the back of Bangura, Smith and Forces, I think we're now in a situation where, unfortunately, and listen, I've got a lot of time for Marcus Force. I think he's a really, really valuable player, and he's probably undoubtedly our best finisher at the club. But there's major, major question marks about his fitness now. And I think if you look at the squad and the kind of glaring obvious positions now, and I don't think there's many at all, to be honest, I think, as well as a left back now, through kind of not consequences, through just the situations which have occurred, someone off the right to compete with Isaiah Jones is now a priority. And also in terms of kind of off the back of injuries not quite being as healed, I guess, as what we thought they may, it probably looks like Anthony Dijksteel is going to be here until at least January now, which I guess at the back end of last season, we all thought that was kind of see you later. That's done now. That's kind of long gone. And, thanks for everything, but you're not going to get any minutes. He's essentially now back up to Luke Ayling, and I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. It would be a little bit silly, to be honest, for him to go anywhere, because otherwise, unless you play Rav out there, which, okay, yes, Darragh Lenihan's back in the fold now, which we haven't mentioned, which is going to be a welcome addition back, but do you really, he's your best centre half. Do you really want to shift him out to right back? Probably not. Dale Fry, again, kind of on the injury front. I mean, I actually said, there's not too much to go at, but kind of Dale Fry is trained, been involved in a handful of the friendlies with limited minutes, but again, looks to be struggling. And that's a whole other sort of conversation about his reliability as well, because it's becoming more and more common where he's not available, and it is a shame because, again, Dale Fry, I'm sure there's countless teams in the league that would snap your hand off for Dale Fry. And I think even when he's fully fit, he's right in amongst the conversation to be starting alongside Rav. But again, different conversation. On to targets now. And we've alluded to him. Ryan Giles. I'm just going to put the name out there, Nathan. Beginning of the summer, we hadn't had any kind of news or any links or anything like that, really. And then you wake up one morning, and I believe it was the Northern Echo that went with it first. Picked up also by the Gazette, which conveniently coincided with their little kind of end of season meeting with Kieran Scott. So I wonder when that was discussed. Ryan Giles was and actively still is a target for Middlesbrough in this transfer window. And I guess kind of the main bulk of the conversation towards the back end of last season was, whose player is he actually? Where does he belong? Hull had signed him on loan. He lost his place in Hull's team. Liam Rosenior got sacked. They then bring in a new manager. Everyone kind of expects him to go back to Luton. Then there's a little bit of a muddying of the waters as to whether Hull actually had to sign him or not. When the transfer window officially opened, a lot of these type of deals were announced as new signings. Ryan Giles, it was complete radio silence. Nothing posted, nothing in the way of, okay, we're delighted to confirm Ryan Giles is officially a Hull City player. Nothing. We now know that Hull did have to sign him, but in all honesty, from all of the noises, both from our side and also from the Hull side, I don't really think they wanted to sign him, to be honest. I think they opted into something in January with the intention of going up through the playoffs, or at least getting into the playoffs, ultimately failed, and then ultimately thought, actually, he hasn't even really played whilst he's been on loan, so do we want to spend a big chunk of our summer transfer budget on him? And then they've had no other option but to do that. And by all accounts, the player is still desperate to come back to Middlesbrough. Kind of what feels like probably a month or two now ago, it really, really started to heat up, and you thought, right, okay, we're days away now. On the Hull end, it was Middlesbrough preparing their move. There was whispers and whispers and whispers. Then it was Middlesbrough preparing their move. A bid is incoming. We expected them to there be confirmation of that. There wasn't. Then a day later, the Hull chairman come out and said, if he wants to go to Middlesbrough, he's more than welcome to. And everyone thought, right, well, at this point, there can't be much left to do. He said he's fine to leave. Ryan Giles evidently wants to come back. Hull were in the midst of kind of selling Philogene and Greaves, and you just thought they probably just want to rack up as much money as possible to start their rebuild. There's kind of been 3 or 4 weeks gone by now, and basically nothing's happened. We still don't know if he's coming. He's actively still a target. He actually started yesterday's final friendly before, obviously, they start their championship campaign, Hull's, on the bench. He hasn't played left back all of pre-season, and it just, I think, especially me and you are kind of just, as amongst a lot of other Middlesbrough fans, are just sitting waiting and thinking, what? Well, can we just get this sorted? It works for all parties. Can we just speed this thing up, and can he just be ours now? I think what's evident though is Hull are kind of continuously moving the goalposts. Then you get the weirdness of one of Hull's hierarchy saying he wants him to be part of the leadership group and that they want to keep him. To me, it just seems like a game of chess between Middlesbrough's recruitment team and Hull's recruitment team. And at the moment, I don't really know who's winning, to be honest.
It has been one of the most baffling transfer sagas I think that we've ever seen, really. Like from a perspective
It's
of,
it's reaching Rodrigo Muniz levels now, and I know you can't see likes anymore on Twitter, but I bet he's been liking a few. 100% he has.
yeah, he will have been. He will have been. It has been a ridiculous summer, really, for Ryan Giles news. Look, I'd say that the vast majority of Boro fans would absolutely love him back. And I'm in that majority. You're in that majority, Chris. Um, and going back to right at the start of the podcast when I said I was in Benidorm, I was coming home on the day that it was announced. I was up for an early morning flight and checking my phone at 6 a.m. to see 1 minute ago an Echo article had come up about Ryan Giles coming back to Middlesbrough. It was like a lucid dream.
I think you
Um,
probably thought you were hallucinating at that point.
yeah, after a few days on the drink, it was just all a blur what was happening. And seeing that, I think you were getting up for work maybe an hour and a half after because I was an hour ahead, and I'm absolutely hammering your phone, pretty much screaming down the phone saying, I can't believe it, he's coming back. And lo and behold, 2 months later, he's still not back. Yeah, a real strange situation. Everything that we've heard has been that he wants to come back. But then when it was sort of announced that he was a Hull player, everyone thought, well, the situation hasn't necessarily changed. It just means that you've got to have the conversations with Hull rather than Luton. Then seeing Hull's social media activity, seeing no interview with Ryan Giles when he was first announced as a Hull player, you're thinking, yeah, this is on. 100% this is on. The fact that there's been no interview shows that they fully expect him to be out the door pretty much straight away. And then, yeah, hearing murmurings from both sides, at the Hull Live and also the Echo and the Gazette, that the hierarchy at Hull were just happy to, if Borough paid up, whatever the fee was, that he'd be free to go. But it's always been repeated by uh, Dom and Scott Wilson, really, that Borough would prefer a loan move, which I imagine will be causing a little bit of a stir and a little bit of a sticking point with the deal. Obviously, they've just paid £4 million for him, and sending him on loan wouldn't necessarily be the best idea. One, in terms of an investment in a player. Two, in your stakeholders, your fans' viewpoint of the football club will turn horrifically negatively, having just signed a player who's done really well in the championship in the past and sending him out on loan to a direct playoff rival immediately. It wouldn't go down well. But with a week to go before the championship season starting, and look, we're in need of a left back now. We weren't at the time necessarily. It said that if the situation arose, we'd take it, but if not, then we were happy. Well, we're not happy anymore. We need another left back. And with a week to go, as you mentioned, he was on the bench yesterday for Hull. They have about 14 players to pick from, and he was on the bench yesterday. Yeah, it really will be a strange one. I'm hoping that Hull get a lot of business done pretty soon, really.
I think they're
Before,
going to have to, otherwise they're going to have a start to this season like we did last season.
yeah, they are. They are. Yeah, they're really struggling for players. But weirdly, they're not struggling for left backs. They have plenty. So just cut all ties. Just cut the
Get it
bullshit.
done.
Cut the bullshit and hand him over. Free.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we've been kind of responsible for a few hashtag free sort of insert players over the past few years, some of which have been probably quite childish and pointless, and also just downright stupid, really. Ironically enough, Jorgen Strand Larsen is now a Premier League player and a £25 million Premier League player at that. So, yeah, I didn't ever see that one kind of happening when he was giving interviews to the Dutch media about how much he was desperate to join Middlesbrough. But yeah, we'll forget about that. It just remains to be seen, doesn't it? It's an ongoing thing, and I think from both sides, and even from kind of little pieces of information that we've ourselves kind of been passed on or heard, it's a case of Ryan Giles wants to come back to Middlesbrough. Okay, nothing's ever fact, but he would love to come back to Middlesbrough, and Middlesbrough would love him back. It's just a case of, obviously, I guess kind of what you're saying as well. At the time when it initially started, we didn't need a left back. Now we do. Does that make Hull think, oh, hang on a second, we'll add another million onto the price tag? Probably. But I just hope, like you say, that it can be resolved one way or another, or we move on. Because the thing is, the longer we wait for Ryan Giles, as much as I would love him back, or their other left back targets, which are going elsewhere and we're missing out on because we're trying to do a deal for Ryan Giles, it's a possibility. But I think, as you've said, we need one now. It's not a case of it's an added bonus. We do need a left back. So it's an interesting situation and an ongoing one at that. Another ongoing transfer situation, Nathan. Nathan, for for audio listeners, Nathan's just kind of stuck his head into his mic as if to say, can we please just get a breakthrough on either of these? It's only been ongoing a week. He's just impatient, I think, with these transfers. But anyway, Tommy Conway, again, kind of multiple layers to this transfer situation. He has been given the Scott McDonald treatment. He's on the naughty step at Bristol City. He's training with the kids and he's on the move. He's rejected a deal. Middlesbrough have slapped an offer on the table and said, right, heavily incentivized, but if he does really well, you might end up getting 5 million quid out of her. If he does really, really well, as I say, heavily, heavily incentivized. Bristol City is still mulling over it, as far as kind of we're aware, as far as kind of reports are suggesting. It got to the Wednesday or Thursday last week, and everyone was like, right, okay, we haven't heard anything. The bid's gone in. Bristol Live, their local paper, confirming that information. Right, this is just a case of there's not really been anyone kind of as interested or really made a verbal or official offer for the player yet. He wants to leave. Bristol can get their money, they can take it, and they can run and do whatever you like. And we're going to add a forward to our ranks that we need, that is going to offer brilliant competition to Emmanuel Latte-Lath. It just works for all parties. Then Burnley come along and decide, do you know what, actually, over the course of the last 24 months, we've just basically signed every single youth Belgian development player alongside a few additional ones, have a squad of about 48 players. So now actually we're getting rid of a few. So if you want a couple of our players, we'll have Conway off you. And now Bristol City have gone, we should probably think about that actually. And one of the players happens to be Scott Twine, who they, of course, would quite like in any case. The other one being Luke McNally, who, well, I mean, all my memories of him are just him heading crosses clear at the other side in that playoff semi-final, but we're not getting into that. That's a long time gone now. Anyway, Burnley, as the in-betweeners quote goes, I'm not even going to say it, but you know exactly what I'm referring to. Burnley can off.
Yeah.
Why? Why are they getting involved? Okay, yeah, they're getting involved because he's a good player and it's a good opportunity, but it's quite clearly slowed things down a little bit. And I think now we are all nervously waiting and thinking, is this going to be the Aston Villa of a few years ago where we're absolutely adamant that we've got a player and then all of a sudden it's no longer happening?
Yeah, it's a funny old situation, isn't it? Seeing the initial talks, very pleased. A centre forward that would probably get into to most sides in this division, really. Got double figures in his last two seasons for Bristol City. Yes, okay, what it has been talked about by Bristol City fans and by Boro fans that a few of those were penalties. But look, doesn't matter how they're going, you've got to stick them away. I think that getting a player that is young but has also played nearly 100 games at the level would be very impressive. And it would boost us significantly when you look at an option in the case of injury or off the bench to come on and do a job. Now, where the strangeness happens is Scott Twine is Bristol City's number one target. The fact that they want him and Burnley half want Conway is what's scuppering this deal. I'm just hoping that they aren't necessarily thinking that, well, if we don't give him to Burnley, then we probably won't get Twine.
The
So
thing
we
is,
go to
though,
Burnley.
yeah, the thing is, I guess in this circumstance is you've got to look at it from the player's perspective where look, Tommy Conway is probably not going to come into Middlesbrough and be our starting number 9. But what is very interesting actually, in another sort of dimension, which I haven't really seen a lot of people mention, is a lot of Bristol City fans, and I went on to kind of their side of Twitter and also on their forums. And interestingly, Tommy Conway was supposedly being molded as Andreas Weiman's replacement, as almost like a withdrawn striker. He has played as number 9, but I think there's that option for him at Middlesbrough where, look, if we did opt to try and mimic the Archer Akpom situation, who's to say that they couldn't, Latilaf and him couldn't play together up top? But also, from the player's perspective, how many strikers do Burnley have? 6, 7, 8. Is he really going to get the required minutes for someone in that stage of his career that has rejected a contract to go and better himself? Yeah, okay, he might get a little bit more money and he's probably within a real good chance of getting promoted. But I don't think necessarily that it's, any less of kind of a forwards move in his career. And for those Bristol City fans that are saying it's a sideways step, grow up, because Bristol City have treaded water now for probably 4 years. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Bristol City. They've built year on year, spent a decent amount of money. We have a terrible record at your stadium, but if you don't think Middlesbrough's a step up, a team that is consistently, barring maybe 1 or 2 seasons, challenged for the playoffs, then I don't know what planet you're living on. But yeah, for him, he's probably going to be looking at aspirations of playing in the Premier League, aspirations of playing a lot of minutes of football. Middlesbrough offers him that far more than I think Burnley can offer. And I also think realistically, I know at the beginning of the transfer window, there was like this bizarre stretch where everyone was going football manager style and swapping players. But how often, apart from those deals at the beginning of the season, and it was mainly just Premier League clubs for PSR reasons doing it, do you not think that Bristol City, and the thing is, it's going to be pure profit for them as well, would they not just prefer the money? where they can go and spend. Okay, yes, they might not get a lot of it up front, but would they not prefer something to go and try and make an addition or put it towards Scott Twine? Yeah, okay, Luke McNally is a decent championship centre half, but do they need him or do they just really want Scott Twine?
Yeah, I think I was reading Twitter last week when this sort of swap deal was mooted about, and I think more than anything it was that this is a deal that Bristol want rather than Burnley would want to lose both of those players at the same time. They're just sort of measuring the fact that, well, if Conway is worth 5, then Twine is worth 3 or 4, and McNally's worth 1 or 2. Well, I'd probably disagree with that a little bit. I think that we will see movement on this probably by the
To,
time this goes out.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're recording on Sunday afternoon and we usually obviously upload the podcast on a Monday night. I am fully expecting that there's a strong chance by the time that this goes onto YouTube and on audio platforms, if you're getting to this stage of the podcast, that there may well be an update on that situation. To be honest, I'd be quite surprised, and that's not like through anything that kind of we've been told or anything like that. It is more so that just there's that bid's been on the table now. What, 4 days supposedly, and Burnley haven't really there's been nothing else on it. You just expect that there's going to be some sort of update in the next 24, 48 hours. And to be honest, something that we haven't mentioned, the actual journalist which broke the story about Middlesbrough's interest has actually gone on record and actually said there's teams other than Burnley who are a lot more interested in Tommy Conway, who have genuine concrete interest. And I don't think that Burnley's interest is not concrete, but I do think that, as you say, it's not something that they are probably as. If Tommy Conway signs for Middlesbrough, I don't think that Burnley will be as devastated. Whereas, interestingly, it's being reported from the Echo and Dom that Middlesbrough consider Tommy Conway their leading target for this specific role that they're trying to recruit for. So I think it would certainly be more of a blow for us. Obviously, it won't be the end of the world if he does go elsewhere, but obviously Middlesbrough's interest is very firmed up and official and concrete. So let's hope, obviously, we kind of come out on the right side of that.
Yeah, and we've heard this morning as well that he'd be interested in the move as well. So yeah, we'll probably hear more on that in the next probably 24 hours, really.
Yeah, I imagine so. Right, okay. We're finally kind of reaching the end of the preview of the season, I guess. You know, there's been all the hysteria of everything that comes with a summer in between football seasons, but the proper stuff starts on Saturday, Nathan. Swansea at home. Just as far as I'm concerned, if we don't start even as badly by half of the way in which we started last season, I'll be absolutely delighted. I can't do another 6 or 7 games where you're thinking, what has happened here then over summer?
Chris, I, I just need a win within the first 5.
Yeah,
Genuinely, like for the last 2 seasons, I've felt the way that I have now, where I'm excited for the new season. Two seasons ago, Wilder was in, we'd had a good season and we were going for it. Thought, right, here we go. And we were crap for months until pretty much Carrick come in last season. Right, the rebuild started. We've lost loan players. We've got some new players in. It's all exciting. Millwall at home to start. They're not that great. We should be all right. Let's get into these and see what we're really cooking. Nothing for the first 7 games or something like that until the middle of September. Like, please, please, and I've got everything crossed because I have a really, really good feeling about the squad in where it's at in terms of we haven't lost any key players. We've added players in. There's a very good feeling about
There's
this
a
group of players.
what's really important as well is there's continuity. We haven't
Yeah,
had that.
yeah. There's continuity. That's what I'm saying. We haven't lost any players from pretty much the back end of last season that had gone 12 out of 13 games unbeaten. We are pretty much going into Swansea on Saturday with the team that finished Watford in May going into this game. It was probably going to be a very similar team, apart from like Luke Thomas at left back, and we'll see Hackney in midfield. So, look, let's get into these on Saturday and let's just get 3 points on the board. I was saying it yesterday. If it has to be a 1-0 Bergzorg penalty in the last minute against Swansea, I couldn't care less. Just get 3 points on the board nice and early. First win, home game. Red Faction have moved. The atmosphere will be bouncing. It'll hopefully be good weather. And yeah, we'll hopefully be off to a flyer. But we know what Boro do. They never do things easy, do they?
No, no, they really don't. They really don't. And just the added little spice to the game. Swansea, look, they were absolutely horrendous at the back end of last season when we played them. I do obviously early days when their new manager went in there, and I seem to remember him making comments. I can't remember to the exact extent, possibly about the atmosphere,
Yeah.
um, and basically just slating the game and slating the way it was played and the fashion and the intensity. But let's just shut him up again. Let's just make him. Let's just make him think. Do you know what? Probably shouldn't have poked the bear at the back end of last season. And
Look,
and and let's just put on a show.
yeah, I agree.
Make a real statement of intent first game of the season. And I know it's a 46 game season, and there's way, even if we lost 5-0, I certainly wouldn't be very happy, but there's still a long, long way to go. But I think it's to be honest, in Middlesbrough history, it's not something that we do tend to do. But let's just start as we mean to go on and really put on a good performance and just show that actually this season we're not going to give everyone a 10 game head start.
Yeah, and not that I care about them at all, but it'd be nice for once, and I hope it's us that are nowhere near the dreaded bottom three. But it'd be nice to get to October and not be next to Coventry in the table.
I don't want to hear their name until we have to play them. Honestly, Nathan, I can't. I really, I can't deal with that again. For my own mental health, that can't be another thing this season. It really can't continue. I mean, to be honest though, now we've got loads of things in common with them.
Got the same
As
kit.
if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see Nathan's got the away kit on. At the away games, we're nicking Sky Blue Army off them. So I mean, we'll be best of friends, I'm sure, come January time when we're inevitably fighting it out for automatic promotion. Let's not think about that. Right, okay. We've been recording for what feels like about 3 hours now, but to be fair, we didn't have an awful lot to discuss. General predictions for the season. Let's have a pop. Well, I'm sure at the back end of this season we'll come back and laugh. But Middlesbrough's position or where they need to be kind of aiming for, where you expect us to be in and around, top scorer and surprise of the season.
Well, I think that you'll echo this, but the championship is definitely not as strong as it was last season in
Agreed.
in terms of the top sides in the division. What I will say is I think that the championship is a lot more equal than last season. I think that there's a pack of teams that are going to be gunning for promotion or at least the playoffs this season. I'm going to be honest. I think Burnley are an unknown quantity. I think they are with the recruitment that they've done so far. It looks like they're continuing on like company recruitment, but they've got Scott Parker in charge. So you don't know what they've got. Leeds lost a couple of players, lost the Championship Player of the Year in Somerville, lost Archie Gray. Be interested to see what they look like. I think that they'll still be very strong. But yeah, they've got work to do to remold and go again. But I think there's a pack of teams that'll be similar to us in trying to push that top two. If you're going to class Burnley and Leeds as that top two, I think there's going to be a pack of teams, us included, Coventry, Norwich, Sheffield United, maybe. Depends how things get on with them in the takeover. They've signed a couple of players, but we'll have to wait and see on them. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm missing any other ones really. Probably aren't Luton. I think that they'll be in
I
and around
think
the
I
offs.
think with Luton they'll probably be in and around there because they've done it before. They have good players and they have a good manager, a really good manager.
Yeah.
But now 2 seasons, 3 seasons on, I know obviously Rob Edwards wasn't there, kind of going back beyond that point before the season that they actually got promoted. But has everyone not learned now exactly what they are? Lug it in the box and hope for the best in the nicest way possible.
It's strange as well because these players have gone at it for Luton for 2 seasons now. They've got them over the line into the Premier League and they've had to try the hearts out last season and they shocked a few. They finished third bottom rather than rock bottom with 10 points. But have they got the energy and the desire to go again and try and get promoted again this season? Will they have that extra couple of yards in them that they probably did 2 seasons ago? Really interesting to see how they do and all other teams as well that maybe underachieved last year. Sunderland will be an interesting side this year. New manager, unknown quantity. Signed a couple of good players. Will they lose Clark? Maybe, maybe not. If he stays, who knows where they may end up. I think it's a very interesting division this year, but I think that we will be aiming for the playoffs at a minimum,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, I echo that to be honest. And I was asked this a couple of days ago about kind of where we're at, what I think their aspirations are for the season. I think that we are probably two, possibly three players away from being right in amongst it. And I mean right in amongst it. At the moment, I think bare minimum, you've got to be looking to make the playoffs. And we nearly, I mean, when you consider that pretty much last season consisted of two really good runs and the rest was below par, if you can find any kind of consistency, you've got to be looking to get in the playoffs as a minimum. But listen, I'm not kind of thinking that we're going to go and as much as a new season brings a load of optimism, I'm in no kind of, I don't think in the current position that we're in, without those two or three key additions, just for the squad, just for different options, and that added little bit of quality, I don't think we're quite in terms of. I'm not looking and thinking we should be challenging the top two. I don't think it's out the question that we could, but I'm not looking and thinking that we should. I think, as you say, playoffs is got to be kind of the minimum. Top scorer, it was kind of a silly inclusion, really, because it's going to be like a laugh, both for Middlesbrough and the division. So, I mean, I'm sure your answer will be the same, Nathan.
Or Tommy Conway. No, I think it'll be Latella, and I really do. If he can prove in the first few games that the end of last season wasn't a, a long purple patch because it was long. He did it
It
over.
was, yeah.
He did it over nearly a quarter of a season. I think he'll be right up there. And if you look at the odds for championship top goal scorer, he's right up there as one of the favourites. I think what you always look for is a player that if you're going for a top goal scorer bet, you look for a player that plays in a team that creates loads of chances and scores quite a few. He's your man.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with all of those. And then in terms of surprise of the season, I'll go one kind of surprise in Middlesbrough context. So maybe it's a player or a transfer or something like that. And then also like possibly a team in the division where you think actually they might shock a few people this season, both either positively or negatively, whichever you like. Surprise of the season in terms of players wise for me, I think Finn Azaz. And I'm gonna be honest, I was a little bit disappointed with his performances after arriving in January. I don't kind of, not that he was, by all means, I'm not saying he was a, a terrible performer. He certainly wasn't, but I don't know. I think I was just expecting a little bit more. I think I was, when we signed him, I was expecting more of an X Factor player, someone that can find a final pass or create something out of nothing or score a long range goal. And we, in fairness, alongside kind of the improved form of the team, we did start to see it in little flashes towards the back end. But I think with a full pre-season, he might just shock a few in terms of the kind of scale of how good he can actually be. So hopefully that comes to fruition. In terms of a shock, I don't even know if this is a shock. I don't know. I fancy Coventry to be one or two
Yeah, yeah,
rather than in the playoffs. I fancy them to be right up there.
yeah. It's a worry. They've got depth in
They've
attacking
got
areas.
serious depth in that attacking front four, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that one of them throws the toys out the pram before the window's closed. Thinks why the hell he was buying all these players? Was I not good enough last year? But yeah, I do think they'll be up there. Yeah, I don't want to say too much on them because I'm good at jinxing things. Yeah, I think in terms of a player for me, I'll have Isaiah Jones. I think he might get closer to rediscovering his form of a couple of years ago under Wilder. I'm gonna say that he'll be 15 GA for the season.
You wouldn't want to rule it out. You really wouldn't. What about your surprise of the season, Nathan, for non-Middlesbrough related context?
My surprise of the season will be, and I think it'll be a little bit of a funny one, because looking at odds, strangely, when I'm looking to put together an outright accumulator, it appears that Derby aren't among the bookies' favourites to be relegated. I think they'll be straight back down, probably by January. They
Yeah,
look but then again, we play them second game of the season, so I'm not going to say too much.
yeah, yeah. Just keep that one to yourself for a few weeks at least.
Yeah, I think Derby will go down. I
With a
think
whimper.
with a whimper. I think that the promoted sides will struggle. Do you want to know what? Hot take, and this might be my surprise of the
Go on, go on.
of the
I'll let you have one more.
Oxford to be the best performing promoted side.
I, yeah, I could see that happening. I could see that happening. If we really want to be kind of hipster about this, I quite fancy Sheffield Wednesday to have a decent season because of the manager.
Right.
But
I've had enough of this, and it could cause serious debate. I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm not impressed by the business that they've done.
I know, but I think their manager's that good. Nathan, I think it's about time we wrap this up before you completely. The head loss has already started. We haven't even played a competitive game, and your head is on Mars already. So you've got that to look forward to for the remainder of the season. Listen, it's been wonderful to be back. Some of this is going to have to be cut out because honestly, I feel like we've honestly recorded for about 4 hours here. I don't know how long it actually is, but yeah, wonderful to be back. Good to be talking to you again, Nathan, about actual competitive football. We had the disappointment of the Euros. We all thought we were going to go that extra step. Could this be the season where Middlesbrough go that extra step? It remains to be
Yes.
seen.
No,
It re-
no, no, yes, if we win a game in the first 3 months of the season.
yeah, okay, right. That's the stipulation. If we manage to win one game in the first 3 months, we're doing the business and we're winning the trophy.
Probably the
Right,
treble.
okay, yeah, no. That is us done for today. I mean, as I say, we've gone on for long enough now. You're probably bored. There's all sorts of different podcasts and Middlesbrough content dropping all over the place. EFL content, 1 to 24s, league predictions, all the rest of it. If you've enjoyed, then you've done well to get to the end of ours because there's probably honestly 17 hours of content that you probably have indulged in this week. I hope you've enjoyed as much as we have being back. And yeah, we will be back next week. And God, we'll be talking about the first game of the championship season. How exciting, Nathan. Yeah, that has been us. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're back. We haven't just kind of fallen off the face of the earth, although it may have seemed like that for our 3 months hiatus. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching and listening. I do hope you enjoy the build up to the championship season. We're definitely excited. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast, either listening or watching, and we will see you again next week with another episode of the Boropolis podcast.